edition of the OGI Hour, the Open Governance Initiative, coming to you from the Gambia Radio and Television Services, GRTS. My name is Fatili Kamuloshi, your presenter for this program. Today again, we are here with another ministry to look at their development strides and projects they implemented in line with the National Development Plan. Today in the studio, we have the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources. Joining us in the studio to look at this specific ministry is the Permanent Secretary himself, Mr. Mumudumbai Jaba. Don't forget, we are streaming live on Facebook at GRTS TV, also on YouTube at GRTS TV Official. You can also follow our other social media platforms. On Twitter, we are on GRTS TV Official, and as well on Instagram at GRTS TV Official for all the latest developments and as well programs we're conducting here on the GRTS, specifically to know what we're doing on the OGI Hour and the guests we'll be bringing for you every week. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, the Permanent Secretary will join me in the studio to expand the conversation. Do stay. Welcome to the OGI Hour. My name is Fatili Kamuloshi, your presenter for this program. And like I said in the beginning, the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources is our guest on tonight's show, and he's already seated. Here with me is the PS himself. PS, good evening and welcome to the OGI.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here.
Well, it's good to have you here, finally, PS. I mean, let's also first of all start, because 4 decades after the historic Banjul Declaration speech, is Salvador Karabajawar's ideas of environmental preservation still relevant in this 21st century?
Thank you very much. I'm glad you actually opened this discussion, with a tribute to the great initiative taken by our great leader, Salvador Karabajawar, commonly known as the Banjul Declaration from 1977. And yes, to answer your question directly, it can't be any more relevant than this day and age when environment and climate change have taken center stage in almost everything that we are doing as far as development is concerned. And this is as a result of the fact that the importance of these cross-cutting issues, environment and climate change, is all apparent for everybody to see. Everybody knows what goes on, year in, year out. Either we have, high variability in terms of rainfall patterns or temperatures, you name it. So yes, definitely, the Banjul Declaration is a very good background inspiration for whatever we're doing today with respect to environment and climate change.
I mean, who would have thought, actually? The man indeed had great foresight, and for that we commend him. But P.S., let's get into it, because your ministry places significant importance on environmental protection, but still encourages the use or the sustainable use of our natural resources. But this has brought about some conflicts, especially between conservationists and as well farmers. Say, for instance, the clash between the farmers at the rice production belts in CRR and the intrusive and destructive hippos. How do you address such complex issues?
Very good. In fact, that's what makes environment and climate change such important cross-cutting issues as far as the national development plan is concerned. And I'm glad this one touches to the heart of what I have been as a civil servant all my life, which is agriculture. And yes, human activities and wildlife conflict is a very big issue when it comes to food production. Yes, especially you just touched one of them, which is the hippos in the central river region going towards downs to the upstream to the upper river region, where we have our rice basket. And as we all know, rice is our staple crop.
Right.
And the government actually has a plan, what we call country investment plan for rice self-sufficiency. And that is hinged on making the most of the potential of our rice basket, so to speak, with CRR and URR. That's where you have a huge mass of hippos existing. And as we all know, these are animals that are herbivores. They have to graze to feed themselves. So they go on land, to do the feeding, and come back in the water, where they stay for some time. So when they go on land, bothering the river is, extensive rice fields, which of course we are expanding more and more. So basically, in a way, we are also encroaching on their feeding territories. Now, what do we do to try to mitigate, try to adapt ourselves to this situation? Some people will call and say, P.S., you know what? The hippos are giving me a hard time, the example on that. So what, I'm going to shoot the hippos. Say, no, really, don't do that. That's against the law. What we're trying to do here is we want to intensify rice production through scientific methods, of using improved, high-yielding rice varieties, where, say, for example, if you're getting, right now, currently getting about 5 tons per hectare from a particular rice variety, we want to be able to get a variety that can yield you up to 10 tons per hectare, or even hybrid rice, we can even yield, more. So, in essence, you are increasing the productivity per unit area. But again, the cropping pattern is such that we used to rely on only the rainfall, but now with irrigated agriculture, which again, to make it climate friendly, we're trying to encourage tidal irrigation so that we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we have committed ourselves to. What we do is what we call double cropping, and even possibly a triple cropping. That is, you have 3 separate rice crops. You cultivate rice, you harvest, and then cultivate another one within the same year, dry season, wet season, or even splitting the dry season and wet season. So where you normally would have, say, 5 tons per hectare, there is the potential of increasing the productivity up to 20 tons, or more than 20 tons per hectare.
So is that to say that the hippos can feed at the same time, giving the farmers the yield that they expect?
Exactly. The idea there is that, with our drive towards rice self-sufficiency and our, appetite towards, food security, we want to make sure that expanding the area of cultivation is not conducive to amicably, living together in a harmonious way, in a sustainable way, with wildlife. So you want to make sure that per unit area you will increase your productivity rather than just keep on expanding, which encroaches on to territory that would normally be occupied by so these are climate smart agricultural,
have you started implementing strategies like these?
Absolutely. Like I said, the country already have what we call Country Investment Plan for Rice Self-Sufficiency, which we did together with the African Development Bank funding, and Africa Rice, which is the sub-regional organization responsible for supporting rice production activity, in West Africa and Africa in general.
So is this working?
It's already, we've started implementing it with our partners. Number one, like I said, the African Development Bank, the World Bank, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, which is coming to roll out one of the biggest agricultural projects, which is environmental economy and climate resilient, which is the Roots project, which is also kind of like a programmatic approach in the sense that it's going to continue from where NEMA, the National Agricultural Land and Water Management Project, left off, to expand some of this.
Very well. We'll dilate on that further. But let's still stick to environmental issues, because rural-urban drift is indeed a thing. And in 2013, this was estimated around 58%. We are in 2020. So it is expected that this would increase. Talk to us about how this has affected, growth in all its environmental dimensions, taking into consideration both areas.
I'm glad you asked that question, because rural-urban drift is all driven by the number one fundamental driving factor there is economics. I mean, as times change, the environment and with the climate change, issues taking root, like productivity of land, and of course, the availability of land, is dwindling, and of course, returns on investment as far as the smallholders, people start moving towards urban areas, and of course, greener pastures outside, the borders of this country. Now, what do? The government has been implementing for the last 3 years major flagship climate change project called the Large-Scale Ecosystem-Based Adaptation Project, ABA, for short. And basically, what we want to do is, try to make sure that we turn, so to speak, orange, lime into orange. That is, okay, we have our natural resource. How do we adapt ourselves and make sure that we turn it into green business? So if you have a forest cover, we make sure that, we empower you with beekeeping. Honey is a very highly, marketable commodity, which is environmentally friendly. Green business based. And of course, we build ecotourist, facilities around, the country, and these ecotourist facilities will create jobs, for youths, in the rural communities, and of course, it's kind of like cut down on how you call it, rural urban migration. And I'm sure we'll get to that. But, but we, like somebody will tell me, like, with all the rainfall that is happening, what do you do about it? Yes, we're also trying to make sure we do, we harvest water, keep it in one place in huge storage facilities, which can be used for animal drinking, drinking points for animals, as well as, vegetable production and dry season crop production.
We'll come to that. And I like the sound of green transitions. All the time we have these conversations, it sparks a whole lot of excitement in me. But let's also talk about other issues, because environment issues encompasses a whole lot of things, and utilities are part of those. When we talk about environment, of course, how we consume resources available to us subsequently have an impact on the environment. Now, with this rapid urbanization, how are you engaging, poorer officials, especially physical planning, in just making sure that they follow the right mechanisms in their development strides?
Thank you very much. Like you said, especially in terms of energy production, we have what we call our nationally determined contribution to lowering the greenhouse gas emissions, which of course, contributes to global warming. And of course, the ramifications of global warming is a household, everybody knows about it, leads to, sea level rise, serious variability in terms of, weather and so forth. So yes, what we're doing in that aspect, as part of our mandate and our position within the OMBE, that is the Gambia River Basin Development Organization, we are embarking on a 100 megawatt hydroelectricity facility. That means we want to move away from hydrocarbon generated, energy, electricity, to green, climate-friendly, renewable, energy. So that alone, is going to supply about 100 megawatts. And right now, as I'm speaking to you, I just came back from a meeting in Dakar. The interconnection line of about more than 1,600 kilometers between Gambia, Senegal, Guinea-Conakry, and Guinea-Bissau is already at an advanced state, and we are already putting up a substation in Diarasono, which is equally feeding into a node substation in Brikama. And also part of our national adaptation mechanism, NAMA, which we are working together with the UNDP. We are looking at putting up to more than 10 megawatts of off-grid solar photovoltaic, solar power.
When is this effective?
This right now, the Ministry of Local Government, Regional Government and Lands has already allocated a piece of land where we're going to put this solar arrays, for the generation of this off-grid, solar power electricity. And this will all feed into the national grid. And of course, by doing so, as we are heading towards the achievement of zero emissions by 2050, it will lower the distance. But coming back to urbanization, we all know, urbanization comes with a lot of challenges as far as the environment and climate change is concerned. Government is not oblivious to that. And as part of our national climate change policy and our national environmental policy, we're making sure that physical planning goes hand in hand strict environmental regulations. So we've all seen what happened, say for example around Westfield, around Churchilltown, where there's, flash floods. But we make sure that National Environment Agency works very closely with PURA, like you mentioned.
So they advise them.
And physical planning to make sure that structures, infrastructure is properly, planned and placed in such a way that it will not be a problem when serious weather problems happen, like flash floods.
Good to know. I mean, equally, the lack of, like you mentioned, adequate physical planning and comprehensive waste management, treatment and disposal systems for urban centers have exacerbated the problem. So, I mean, of course, these have subsequent repercussions on health. But for now, what has been done at the environmental realm? Because when we talk about these issues, waste management, thoughts are always going to Akote and other municipalities. So talk to us, how have you been engaged in all these different areas that are very much crucial to this waste management drive?
No, I'm glad you pointed it out. It is something that should be of concern to every Gambian. I think the rate of urbanization, like you rightly said, the local government, KMC and ECC will tell you, it's almost outpacing, our efforts towards making sure that we have proper waste management, although we're trying to play catch up. And here, the Bakote dumpsite,
right,
studies have been done, and we know that as it is right now, it's carrying capacity for being able to handle the amount of waste that is generated in the caves, in the area. It's just way beyond its carrying capacity. So yes, government with its partners, local government, identified a place in Tambana. And
why is Tambana?
Tambana is in Congo North,
okay.
Congo North and Congo Central. But we are not stopping there. The last time we had discussions, we said, okay, we must look further ahead because, the rate of urbanization, like I said, is growing at a very high rate. And we must start planning way ahead for how do we, identify other places. We're saying like around Faraba again, where we can. But again, the issue of waste disposal, is a sensitive issue. In this day and age, when you have waste products that can be environmentally deleterious and they can even have some bad health effects, on people. And so you want to be very careful how you position, waste management, facilities.
Especially with the increase in population.
Exactly. So yes, because of that, the planning is being done very diligently, and but it's a concern that definitely, while we are planning.
But you've taken concrete steps in this regard.
Concrete steps are being taken, as I'm speaking to you, and we want to make sure that, we come up with very good, timelines and how you call it, sustainable waste management, facilities, for the long term, which will handle the rapid urbanization that's taking place, and also being able to come up to speed with environmental standards that we have actually subscribed to, internationally.
I mean, I'm afraid, Piers, because as we speak, we're running out of time because we've already started seeing the effects of climate change, flash floods and unpredictable rain patterns. So it's quite important that we take aggressive steps in this dimension. You've mentioned that you'd be very diligent in it. We hope to see concrete results soon as. But still, let me just shift to climate change because it's very crucial in what we'll be talking about. And the Gambia is clearly not insusceptible to this. Aside from carbon emissions that come from diesel cars, I mean the huge influx of diesel cars, most of our cars are diesel, especially these Texas commercial vehicles we see, and reconditioned vehicles that are in fact not running in other advanced countries are brought into this country. Quite a number of times they're also contributing into what is destroying the environment, which also exacerbates the issue of climate change. So, I mean, what other contributing factors are there to this meanness aside these that I've mentioned?
No, I'm glad you brought up that issue because we are currently trying to revise and also update what we call our nationally determined contributions. And this is towards making sure that we lower the greenhouse gas emissions. And I'm glad you mentioned those things that you did. Because the Gambia has been identified as one of the countries that is highly vulnerable as far as climate change is concerned. So as a result, we also been identified as a country which is being very ambitious. In fact, there was a summit, recently called the Climate Ambition, Summit, that is to come up with, ambitious, policy goals and projects, that will help us to achieve the zero emission, that is targeted by the international community by 2050. So yes, we are putting, regulations in place. We are updating policies that will make sure that those sources of greenhouse gas emissions are seriously, curtailed. Because if you don't do that, we will not be able to achieve what we are. And then concretely, like you said, we cannot just have policy document and strategy document. But again, we are using that as a springboard to mobilize resources, because you need resources to implement this. You've seen recently, I'll just point to one example, the control of plastic. And if you've traveled to neighboring countries, and you compare us to them, you can tap ourselves on the back, as far as what we are doing as far as controlling plastics, is concerned. But it's an expensive business, in terms of enforcement, these regulations, and it's not easy. But more importantly, what we need is the collaboration and the cooperation of the population generally, to know that these laws and regulations are put in place for our own benefits. It's not a question of government trying to impose or trying to curtail your livelihood or whatever.
And are you seeing a sort of compliance from the public in your regulation efforts?
Oh yes, I mean there is a lot of compliance. Of course, there are slippages. As usual, whenever you relax about enforcement, people will always try to test the waters, and see if they can, slip through, and so forth. But with this renewed vigor, as far as the enforcement is concerned, led by our good National Environment Agency, I must pay tribute to my executive director, to Trawale, leading by example on that. But myself and the minister went out on, supervision and monitoring, mission. I will tell you an anecdotal story. While we were in Tangier, watching these people confiscate, plastic bags.
They were confiscating.
Confiscating. When
was this?
This was about a month ago.
Okay.
My own how do you call it, the Mauritanian shopkeeper, my own home. He called me and said, "Boss, you people are here, they have confiscated." I said, "But I never knew that you were selling, plastic." So
on
they said,
yeah.
Exactly.
Good that they're confiscating.
Absolutely, yeah. And so the enforcement is taking effect.
Very well, good to know. I mean, we're still talking because all of these contribute to our climate change issues. So let me just read a little excerpt I have here. It says, it is estimated that each year property damage from climate change induced windstorm, floods, and loss of crop yield amount to tens of millions of Gambian dollars. In 2010 alone, urban floods affected more than 35,000 people and damaged 2,371 houses, with a quantified loss of food and cash crop. So, P.S., what we are faced with is indeed serious and it's gross. What do you make of this? Our lifestyle also contribute a lot to what we are faced with.
I'm glad you pointed that out, and of course, most of these, when we advise people, like you say, okay, look, say the own Kotu provider, please do not settle in these areas. You settle in these areas, you become more vulnerable. Along the Kotu Street, there is a certain area, amount of area that you need to, keep away from,
Okay.
Because if you settle right next to the stream, when flash floods happen, just like the last rainy season, what is going to happen to you? It causes damage to both property and life.
So you do advise people on most occasions, but they still settle.
Exactly. I mean, case in point, the Tambi wetlands, these are reserved wetlands. When you go to Joshua right now, they're having issues of it. You find people encroaching upon areas that have been clearly demarcated as part of, Ramsar, protected areas. So basically, when we tell people about this, when somebody comes and tries to sell you property in those areas, do your due diligence. Find out whether, the physical planning would normally not allow you to do that.
Okay.
But when people do these things, nowadays, you go and tell them, they blow it, to something else. So in essence, what I'm trying to emphasize here is, as much as government is putting out these regulations and trying to do some measure of planning here, it is the ownership of the community and the land in these processes that will yield dividends. Otherwise, if we flout them, we're going to suffer the consequences.
But do you think the policy implementers or regulators have been very much vigilant in these circumstances?
That's yes, we all could put in a little bit more effort, as you rightly pointed out, more vigilance, more enforcement, so to speak. But enforcement also, say for example, when you talk about the illegal timber trade, the police will tell you, look, you don't have enough fuel to patrol the areas, where, you have the illegal loggers going through. So again, we need to bring in more resources to the doorsteps, to make them available for those who are going to be doing the enforcement of the regulations.
Interesting. We'll hold it at that and take a short break. When we come back, we'll take a look at some other questions, including those that you've been sending to us on our different social media platforms. To stay. Welcome back to the OGI Hour. It's coming to you on GRTS TV. We are also streaming live on our YouTube channel at GRTS TV. Don't forget to subscribe just in case you are unable to get our signals here. You can also get that as an alternative. My name is Fateli Kamloshi, and my guest in the studio here is the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Mai Jabang, from the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources. We've been discussing quite a lot of interesting things, including how to preserve our environment, the forests, crop yield, but at the same time protecting the wildlife and also climate change. But still on those same issues, especially with climate change, PS, let me still come back to you on this same matter, because the Gambia is a signatory to the Paris Agreement. That means that we need to come up with a long-term strategy, a long-term vision. Has that been done already, and what's the ultimate goal?
Very good. I'm sure you probably heard in the news recently, we've been working with the International Institute for Environment and Development of the UK. It's putting together what we call our long-term strategy, as our commitment towards achieving the Paris Agreement. And in the same token, of course, we have already updated our climate change policy. We have established a climate change fund. And most importantly, for the first time, we have established a climate change secretariat. And just last week, I just finished congratulating my newly appointed Director of Climate Change. First time ever.
We have a Director of Climate Change now.
We now finally have a Director of Climate Change, Mr. Alpha Jallo. And as I'm speaking to you, this guy is so enthusiastic with his team. They are already up and running. As I am speaking to you now, they are in a retreat in Khartoum, reviewing our National Adaptation Plan with a group of other senior members of the climate change fraternity from the University of the Gambia, Water Resources.
All right, so what is going to be the long-term vision as we speak?
Yes, as we speak, what we've also done in collaboration with our partners, in this instance, the World Bank has what they call Pilot Program for Climate Resilience, PPCR. And the PPCR looks towards assisting countries in coming with a, so to speak, investment plan for climate resilience. And in Gambia, the World Bank, through the African Development Bank, private provided response, and we have already, you might have heard of that, validated what we call our Strategic Program for Climate Resilience, SPCR. And basically, this is the investment blueprint of the country, the NDP process, to make sure that for the next 10 years, we mobilize resources for all cross-cutting issues, that are related to climate change. be it agriculture, health, coastal infrastructure, you name them, education, livelihoods, So this is all very clearly spelled out, in that document. And we are in the process of working with our partners, WFP, World Food Program, FAO, UNDP, UNEP, to full-blown proposals out of this, to mobilize as much resources as possible.
As you can. But this document is different from the LTS, which is going to be the long-term
Exactly.
strategy.
This document, the long-term strategy is different from the SPCR. The SPCR basically is like our investment, vessel, where we clearly spelled out we need this much, to be able to achieve, coastal, protection, against climate change.
All right. So the LTS is set and done and up and running.
The LTS, like I said, was recently validated.
Validated.
And we're going to put it out there to our international partners again, to make sure that it's being put to implementation.
Did you consult other stakeholders during this drafting process?
Oh yes, I mean we had one of the best international consultants for this process, who's Gambian, by the way.
Interesting.
Dr. Tijan Diallo. Incidentally, he was the lead consultant for the National Development Plan. So we were able to work together with our international partners and get this expertise to assist us, in putting together the LTS as well.
Good to know. I mean, clearly all these have, climate change issues. All of these have devastating effects on our biodiversity. I mean, decrease on fish productivity of the River Gambia, Havia, will be about 4% by 2100. And we are not there yet, PS. But folks are already complaining about fish scarcity. What's the projection in the short term? And do we have already smart ideas probably to alter this narrative or see a reverse in the scenario?
Sure. I must agree with folks that are raising the alarm about the possibility of scarcity of fish, as a result of our own, reckless activities. So yes, we are doing concrete efforts, to make sure that we mitigate this, so that we don't have enough fish. Even marine protection itself, we are actually we are working with our international partners to make sure that we put in more resources into protecting our coast, national coastline, our marine resources, both the Atlantic Ocean as well as the River Gambia. And in terms of fish, like you rightly said, the OMVG project is all encompassing. It's not just for generating hydroelectricity. The Samangala Dam that we envisage, one of the things that we're going to try to do with that, is generate enough water, to actually pump into the River Gambia, so that there will be, those areas that used to be saline, water can be controlled in such a way that you can do crop production, and control in such a way that the breeding of fish in and out will also be enhanced. But yes, like you rightly said, and people are concerned, and rightly so.
Right.
There are certain activities that have been, inherited, from the last government to now. We've done all well, as far as good practice is concerned, as far as the blue economy is. Yes. So I would like to allay the fears, of some activities and conservation, that yes, even the fish meals that people talk about, I will tell you that there were more than 10 applications for fish meal, but right now as we're speaking, it's only 3, and we are going to institute a study, consultancy, to actually study and revisit this whole fish meal activity. How well has it been going internationally, consultancy too, how well has it been going, and then come up with informed decision on the way forward,
right,
as far as our marine resources are concerned.
I'm sure folks have other questions on that as well, but let me just shift to another one here, because additionally I see here about 92 square kilometers of the coastal zone, including the city of Banjul, will be inundated, and the mangrove systems on St. Mary's Island and Combo St. Mary and the Strand Plains from Barra to Bunyadu Point will be lost, given that the mangrove systems serve as protection buffer against storms for most of the coastal settlements. This would disrupt the livelihoods of these communities. How do you explain this?
Again, rightly so. I'm glad people are raising these concerns. Gambia, of course, has been declared as one of the most vulnerable countries as far as effects of negative effects of climate change is concerned. Potential sea level rise, at a certain level, can have, Banjul inundated, But we are working, with the Dutch government,
Okay.
and, with the Dutch company and EU, again, to expand on the coastal protection infrastructure that was started around the Radio Sea area. I mean, if those who have fine memories would remember when the sea waves used to come all the way up to the Radio Sea, building facilities and up to the Muslim cemetery. But because of reclamation, and beach knowledge, we've been able to actually push the sea, so to speak.
Okay.
Now we're working with the Dutch again, who are very good, at coastal protection, and looking at the whole coastline, like you said, from Bunyadi Point all the way down to Kato.
Okay.
And talking about mangroves, what we've done again, what we are doing with the large-scale ecosystem-based adaptation project is that, we're doing a lot of restoration. And we're working with communities, the participatory community forest management, and other NGOs and CBOs, to provide them, with resources to free replanting, mangrove, in these areas. So yes, all these efforts will contribute towards actually restoring the mangrove cover and the real, so to speak, the deforestation.
I mean, just a quick one before we go on to the questions that the people are sending on social media, because I'm aware of the fact that you have, you have developed the national climate change policy that you've developed with support from the EU. Just briefly tell us what this policy entails, because I'm aware of the fact that other outputs of this project include various studies on coastal zone management and the construction of ecotourism camps as an alternative livelihood for communities in Brufut, Ghana, Madiana, and Tangier. First of all, PS, are you aware of the fact that Madiana, that community, is already sinking? What will a coastal management plan prove?
I mean, like you rightly said, with our climate change policy, and of course we use those policy documents, to work with our partners to come up with projects like the EVA project and also the Adapting Agriculture to Climate Change project that we have with the FAO, as well as right now we're going to start a new adaptation project with the WFP. We already have one with the UNDP. Yes, we are making sure, we are trying to make sure that, we provide facilities, like I said, ecotourism facilities, places like
the coastal.
Yeah, but for places like Madiana, those kind, what we do is, we sponsor, we fund studies to determine, what kind of structures they can put in place to adapt or mitigate, the effects of climate change or, weather variability as well as those areas are concerned.
So you already started a study on this?
Yes, we have studies, that are ongoing, and we are going to launch more as we mobilize.
How soon will you expect these studies to complete to guide your future projects in these areas?
Hopefully by the end of the, because say we're doing a lot of studies through the EVA project. EVA project, still has 3 more years to go.
Okay.
And so these things are fluid, and they are also, dynamic. We can, if new issues are identified or crop up, we can always, put together studies, to try to address them, and come up with solutions with our partners.
Very well. We hold it there and go straight to social media and see what people are asking. I have very interesting ones here, starting with Twitter. This one is from @Lamin, and it's asking the backwater dumping site has been in operation for more than a decade now. Why hasn't it been utilized to generate energy for the people?
Very good. That's a good question, because again, waste to energy is a very good way of generating, sort of like environmentally friendly way of managing waste.
Right.
And of course, government have had a lot of proposals. In this end, government wants is encouraging PPP, public-private partnership. Different entities came up with proposals. sometimes, some of these proposals, what you find out, is that the amount of waste that can be turned into energy, it's not all that available. And of course, it needs certain kind of, how do you call it, technical and...
Well, Gambia is not a huge country after all.
Yes, it's not a huge country, and the amount of waste that is generated, So again, it needs more studies and more diligence, as to what kind of partnership should the local government, and the private sector come in. People have come up with suggestions, but some of them, and proposals, and some of them, don't really, turn out to be, favorable. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we go to this other one, and it says also, why hasn't the ministry made use of controlled mechanisms such as rainwater harvesting and water treatment facilities to prevent the damages caused by seasonal flooding, or maybe develop a smart irrigation system to utilize the rain?
Very good question. As I am speaking right now, we have a hydrological company doing a consultancy funded by the IBA project to study what kind of waste water harvesting structures and where are the best locations for this, throughout the country.
Have you identified locations already?
They are in the process of identifying them, and before the end of the part of this project is supposed to actually build them, so that we can start this, and then of course expand on them, for subsequent projects. So funds are provided for in the IBA project to do the study to identify the right type of water control, water harvesting facilities in the right locations. Because like I rightly said, if you get those kind of facilities, you can control the grazing of your livestock, and then reduce the the crop farmer and livestock farmer conflicts that we often have, and also have water for vegetable irrigation, during the dry season, which is a climate smart,
Very well.
type of irrigation.
And I have here, again, with regards to the backwater dumping site, is data available for the yearly accepted waste since started operating, along with the type of waste and percentage of residential and commercial waste? It's about research in this area.
Exactly. What I'll probably do with that particular question is, I will liaise with the executive director of the National Environment Agency, and I'm sure they'll be able to provide specific, answers as far as data, which is good for research, and of course for our own information, to know, the type of waste.
Very well. Let me just shift to another one here, and it says, question one, they have two questions for you from Fatu, and she's asking, during the two-day workshop your ministry organized last week, we have heard that the Gambia is set to achieve the Paris Agreement by 2046. This is such welcoming news to hear as far as our target to mitigating the growing climate crisis is concerned. However, we have seen certain environmental destructions taking place through our relationships with other foreign countries, such as the establishment of fish meal factories, illegal timber logging, etc. How do we set to achieve our nationally determined contributions when these issues are not solved?
It's a very intelligent and
environmentalist.
Question. I'm glad he brought up that question. Again, like I said before, as far as the fish meals is concerned, we are revisiting this whole fish meal thing, number one. And number two, like I said, they are aware about 10 applications, when fish meals spread all over. But right now, as we're speaking, we only have 3. And these 3, Simon, Gunju, and Kat, we're going to revisit and look back and see, what kind of, benefits it's causing to, because what we've done so far is just minimal efforts, collected samples, took them to neighboring countries to test them and so forth. But we are going to go more in detail.
So you are aware of the consequences that these fish meals are posing?
And that's why they are being regulated. That's why the National Environment Agency does regular, periodic monitoring to make sure that, they are complying with our rules and regulations, laws, environmental laws. So, but what I'm saying, we are going to up our game.
Okay.
As far as this is concerned, this is a big issue, it's a contentious issue as far as...
so do we have a maximum in terms of how many fish meals can be operational in the country?
That's what I'm saying. Currently we have only these 3, only coastline, and even the 3 want to revisit them, and see whether they are actually operating within, the acceptable, environmental, regulations.
We hope that that happens soon. Yes. Also here it says, she's still asking, also, sea level rise is a climate threat we are facing in our coastal zones, most especially Banjo, which inhabits over 30,000 people. What strategies do you have in place to address sea level rise? You briefly touched here.
Again, going back to our NDCs, that's the National Determined Contributions, to make sure that we seriously lower down our greenhouse gas emissions. But again, these are the reason why we are participating in, we are party to the Paris Agreements and so
right.
on, is that, nobody can exist in isolation as far as sea level rise, the negative effects of climate change is concerned. So what I do in Banjo is actually contingent on what somebody else does in Dakar, because it's the same Atlantic coast that spreads, between Banjo and so forth. So, but that's why at the table, at the negotiation tables, we go there, we say, okay, these are the nationally determined contributions of the Gambia. What does Guinea-Bissau put on the table? What does Senegal, Mauritania put on the table? And together, we will be able to, meet the target of zero emission, by 2050, and that will help us to mitigate, the cancer, the effects of greenhouse gas emissions, which leads to the global warming. Of course, global warming is the one that leads to sea level rises.
Interesting. So you're already engaged in all this.
Absolutely. Even
countries.
the national adaptation plan that is being reviewed, as I'm speaking with you right now, those are very key issues that are part of it.
Let me just shift quickly to to Facebook. Mansa is asking, what was the investigation report on the 100+ vultures that were found dead at Banjo?
Yes. Okay. Mansa, I would still. The investigation report is not finalized, but with this question, what I would do is get back into the National Environment Agency and the Ministry of Health, to determine what happened to this week. In fact, myself and the Minister of Environment visited Kunju during, in the middle of this problem. And again, I will tell you, during my tenure at the Ministry of Agriculture, the Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency is trying to provide Gunjur with a state-of-the-art, abattoir.
When?
Because
the
building is taking place already. Hopefully it should be completed, sometime next year.
Right.
And of course, one of the contentions was that, the way the slaughterhouse is right now is in a very bad shape, and it could be that, some of these vultures, poison there or whatever. Those were, some of the suggestions, but we are yet to actually, verify what happened.
So he's also asking, Mansa, just briefly, you can answer, the total hatchery at Gunjur, what's their plan to develop it?
Oh, great. We're working with Mr. Jabang, Suleiman Jabang and group, in Gunjur. In fact, myself, the minister, and the executive director of the National Environment Agency visited them about 2 months ago in Gunjur. We went to the hatchery. I mean, these people are doing an initiative that needs worldwide attention, trying to save, an endangered species, the turtle. And the Ministry of Environment has actually contributed, that is our contribution to local organizations. We have contributed funds. We have made funds available to them in their efforts. And we have encouraged them to come up with even bigger proposals so that we can work together. And they do work with our Parks and Wildlife, with our National Parks and Wildlife, and their wildlife management to enhance this effort.
So I'll just take this last question on Facebook from Abati, and he's asking, had followed by Jabang over close to 4 years to just help revive our poultry, including aquaculture farm in Bara, since his time at CPCU. Despite visiting and discussing with him to support such a food security initiative, over $300,000 worth of materials are at risk of total dilapidation.
I'm glad, and I'm very glad, you're taking me to account on national TV about, guess what, during our discussions there, I was trying to channel your request through certain projects, and it didn't really come through. But I'm here to announce to you that if you get this message, please get in touch with me at the Ministry of Environment. We have some funds through our contribution to local organizations. I think this time around, I'll be in a position. Yes, ABBA is doing a great initiative. Remember you talked about migration of people from rural areas to urban areas. I mean, these people came up with a comprehensive, how do you call it, approach, which is climate smart, agriculture, where they combine aquaculture, poultry, and crop production.
So you are aware of what he's saying?
I am aware. We had some very good discussion. It's just that I was trying to be over ambitious. I was trying to channel them through projects that were under my portfolio, and of course, sometimes the bureaucracy can get to me as well. But Abba, please, if you get this message, I want to keep this project alive with you. You come and see me, and we'll make sure that we come back to this discussion table and announce to the people that
it's
this
been
is
done.
what and one of the effects of the OGI,
We're glad. And Abba, I hope you've heard what you wanted to hear. You can go to the PS's office at the ministry, of course, to get that sorted. I hope you do that, and make sure to come back again and tell us what he has told you. But PS, just to wrap it up, we've run completely out of time. But would you say we have the resources at this material point in time, taking into consideration our vast priorities from politics, the development of deteriorating institutions, coupled with climate crisis?
Well, as far as resources are concerned, what we've done so well, Gambia is recognized as one of the most ambitious countries as far as our climate change actions are concerned, is that with all these documents that I've outlined, our NDCs, our third national communication, our climate change policy, national adaptation, the NAMA, the SPCR, all this now, we are working now, long-term strategy, we're working diligently with our partners now to mobilize the necessary amount of resources. Case in point, like I said, one of the areas that we've been able to make headways in is the OMBG projects, where we know that we will be able to get 100 megawatts of green energy, hydroelectricity, and of course I touched on something before we started the conversation here. The Gambia, in terms of conversation, is trying to get on the map, the global map, by doing an initiative that has never been done before anywhere in the world.
What's that?
That is the rewilding of elephants into the Kiang West National Park. We are working with diligent Gambians, such as Ambassador Stephen Lett, with the Aspinall Foundation of the United Kingdom, in rewilding 13 elephants into the Kiang West National Park. And to this end, government would put forward resources to fence 23,000 hectares of park facility in Kiang West. And of course, link this to ecotourism. And our traditional tourist product is now going to be shifted, where it's going to be geared towards high-end ecotourist market, and clients to be able to feed it. And this is going to generate employment. Again, you generate employment in a place like Kiang, you prevent rural-urban migration, so you are actually addressing the negative effects of climate change.
And at the same time.
At the same time.
Very well, PS. I mean, that is a very interesting one. Probably we'll expand that conversation some other time before the elephants, in fact, get here.
Absolutely.
But in a nutshell, we are hopeful for a mitigation strategy.
Absolutely.
That was the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, Mr. Modu Mbaijaba. It's been great having you on the OGI Hour, PS.
Thank you.
Until we come your way again next week with another ministry. Remember, this is a program we use, of course, to put our public officials to task to gauge how far we've come in implementing the National Development Plan 2018-2021. When we come back again next week, Monday, another ministry will join us on the same conversation. Bye for now.